Dear students, friends and colleagues. Today our academic topic is bradyarrhythmias. So how to manage this bradyarrhythmia? Right. Let us see by definition. What is this bradyarrhythmia? Bradyarrhythmia or bradycardia? Bradyarrhythmia or bradycardia is said to that heart rate is less than 60 per minute is known as the bradycardia or bradyarrhythmia. This usually associated with these rhythms like sinus bradycardia. Sinus bradycardia means all these waves peak U or ST is set in the appropriate intervals and the segments intervals, everything is in normal. Only the heart rate is less than the 60, right? So that is the sinus bradycardia. Let us see that one by one. Then degree AV blocks. There are 3 degrees of AV blocks is there, which is known as first degree AV block, second degree and third degree AV blocks, right? The second degree AV block, again you are dividing into the type 1 and type 2. Then the third degree AV block. So all these AV blocks, right, which is producing the bradyarrhythmias, bradycardia. So all these rhythms, we are not going to see about the ECG criteria of diagnosis of AV blocks, because that is the different entity we are going to see in the next episodes, right? So then there is another terminology is called as relative bradycardia. So what is this relative bradycardia? For example, the heart rate supposed to be high, right, in some circumstances. For example, the patient is in the septic shock, the patient is having the fever, right? So the heart rate usually it should be in the physiological responses to heart rate should be in the tachycardic, right? It must be a more than 100. In that situation, you are facing the heart rate of 60 or 70. Seems to be normal. When you measure it with the ECG criteria, the heart rate will be the normal, but the clinical condition, it is inappropriate for the clinical condition. So that is term is known as the relative bradycardia, right? So these are all the rhythms which is associated with the bradyarrhythmias, right? So the mainly that is the sinus bradycardia, then AV blocks, first degree, second degree, third degree, and relative bradycardia. So which bradycardia is needed immediate attention and treatment? Usually sinus bradycardia, it may be a normal physiological response to some of the individuals. For like athletes who is well trained individuals, so they may be or during the sleep. These are all known as the physiological bradycardia. It doesn't need any treatment, right? So all other bradycardias, you need a treatment, right? So we will go by one. When you are going to treat this bradyarrhythmia, whatever may be the bradyarrhythmia, first degree, third degree, or it may be the drug induced, toxin induced, whatever it may be. So when you will treat this bradycardia, right? So there is a specific terminology is there, that is known as the symptomatic bradycardia. So when you will treat the patient in case of bradycardia it is known as the symptomatic bradycardia. So when this heart rate is less than 60, which is producing symptoms to the patients, right? What are the symptoms? We will see that. So when you want to treat the patient is known as symptomatic bradycardia. So these clinical condition needs immediate treatment. So it is a symptomatic bradycardia. It means the bradycardia which is producing these symptoms, right? Patient is having these symptoms, right? But it is produced by the bradycardia, right? So there should not be any other contributing factors. It's rather than the cardiac cause, primarily cardiac cause that should produce symptoms. For example, if the patient is having a head injury, raised intracranial pressure, usually that patients will have the low heart rate, right? That will not fall into this criteria because that is due to increased ICP, that's known as the Cushing reflex. That's different story, right? That bradycardia doesn't fit into this our treatment protocol. Only the symptoms which is produced by the bradycardia, it must be a more or less it must be a cardiac causes, right? So what are all these symptoms the bradycardia will produce, or when you will treat that? indication for the treatment, right? So symptomatic bradycardia. There is a simple terminology is there to describe unstable or symptomatic bradycardia. The mnemonic, there is a specific mnemonic is known as HASIA. H-A-S-I-A. So any of these signs and symptoms which is produced by the bradycardia, then that requires immediate treatment, right? So what are these H? H for hypotension. So the bradycardia is producing hypotension. The systolic BP is less than 90 mmHg. So this is the criteria. Any bradycardia, the patient is producing, presenting with you the BP of less than or 90 or less than 90 mmHg, that patient needs the treatment. So that is known as the symptomatic bradycardia. This symptom is produced by the arrhythmia, right? So A means acute altered mental status. Altered mental status. What is this means? Altered mental status means the heart rate is reduced, so the perfusion to the brain is reduced. So these kind of patients, they will have the drowsiness, lightheadedness, giddiness, sometimes palpitation. All these problems you should consider as a altered mental status. In severe cases, some of the patients, there will be a stupor and coma. It is very difficult to arouse the patient, right? So they will fall into the altered mental status. Sometimes the bradycardia or this arrhythmia will mimic like a stroke. The patient may produce with neurological deficit, focal neurological deficit. He may have the hemiplegia of the limbs, either right or left, or monoplegia, or whatever may be the thing that produce a focal neurological symptoms, right? So that will fall into the altered mental status, right? Stupor, coma, dizziness. Some patients may complain that he is having the dizziness, right? So all these symptoms you should consider as a symptomatic bradycardia. Yes, for signs of shock. What is this signs of shock? The hypotension will fall into these signs. Apart from that, you may have the cold, clammy extremities. The patient is profusely diaphoretic. He is producing more sweating, right? So that is the signs of shock, because that is the homeostasis mechanism. Our body will tend to maintain the blood circulation to the vital organs like coronary and brain. So all these cutaneous vessels and other peripheral vessels which will get constricted. So all the blood will shunt into the central circulation. So you will see that response in the patient, right? So that is known as the signs of shock with cold, clammy extremities. Cold, clammy extremities which fall into the signs of shock, right? So the next is ischemic chest pain. So the heart is pumping very slowly, the rate is very slowly, so the coronaries are not getting adequate perfusion. That is producing the MI, like a hemodynamic MI, may be called as a hemodynamic MI. So that patients will have the chest pain. It must be an ongoing chest pain along with the bradyarrhythmia. So the patient presented with you with bradyarrhythmias, he is having ongoing chest pain, then it is indications for the treatment, right? So the last A is acute heart failure. So what it means, acute heart failure means the patient is having the signs of pulmonary edema. So the heart is not pumping properly, so the congestion into the lungs is happening, so the oxygenation is coming down. So all this which will fall into the acute heart failure. So it put into the very simple way, when we will call it as a symptomatic bradycardia, that is due presence of HASIA. Any one of these symptoms or more symptoms of more than one symptoms, or all of these which we should consider as a symptomatic bradycardia that needs your intervention, right? So sometimes you may get the patient with first degree or second degree AV block, right? Without any of these symptoms. What you will do with that patient, right? So that is the thing that you have to monitor and observe and get the expert consultation. It is not the job of the critical care and emergency care team to treat that patient. It needs expert consultation because the patient is stable at present, no need to intervene by this time. So that is known as the symptomatic bradycardia, right? Okay, once the patient is presenting to you, how you will approach the patient, right? So that is very important thing. So how to approach these patients, symptomatic bradycardia? Patient is coming to you with hypotension, altered mental status, signs of shock, or with pulmonary edema, or ischemic chest pain. How to treat this patient, right? Algorithmic approach. So what is this algorithmic approach means? Any patient is coming to you with heart rate is less than 60 per minute, right? What is our primary job is to maintain to see the ABC. What is that? To assess the airway. See ABC. This is the general approach of any patient coming to the emergency department or critical care department. The primary survey, you are making the patient as like whether he is stable or not. So this is the thing you will do for any cases, not only for the bradycardia, but in pursuit of bradycardia, you have to see that airway, whether the patient airway is stable or not. Airway means that he is able to maintain his patency of the airway. Any secretions is there or tongue fall is there due to sensorium loss or whatever it may be. You see the check the assess the airway. B for breathing. Patient is breathing, whether the rate and depth of breathing is adequate, right? If not, give oxygen. Give oxygen. So supplement oxygen. If the patient is not breathing, then you have to support with breathing. Like you can make a ambu bag ventilation, or you can go ahead with advanced airway like endotracheal intubation. That depends upon the situation, right? In the circulation part, so the circulation part is very important. What you have to do is take the 12 lead ECG. 12 lead ECG is very mandatory thing because it will give the help us to analyze the what degree of AV block is there, severity of the disease we can analyze. So C means you should take the 12 lead ECG, right? Get IV access. Get IV access. So whatever you are going to treat the patient, right? It is a lifeline. You have to cannulate the IV access, and so now you draw the blood for the sampling, right? So you access to the IV and draw the blood for the sampling for the routine investigations like your electrolytes, cell counts, and the coagulation, whatever needs you need. That this is the important thing we have to do in the circulation, right? Then cardiac monitor. This you will initiate initially once the patient comes to your emergency or critical care department, you will initiate monitor. Otherwise, you have to do these things, right? So take the 12 lead ECG, analyze it, get the IV access, and draw the samples for the blood. Then you should be cardiac monitor along with the defibrillator, because now it is bradycardia. After some times this patient may go for a arrest. So that to handle that, you should connect with the defibrillator, and you have to prepare for the CPR, right? Your team must be ready, your crash cart Bradson must be ready. So you have to be with this this thing, right? Now we know that ABC approach, right? Now you know that. Support the airway, breathing, you have to stabilize the breathing, support the breathing if requires, give oxygen, supplemental oxygen. Connect for the 12 lead ECG, take the 12 lead ECG and analyze the severity of the disease, get the IV access, this is the lifeline, draw the samples for the blood investigations. Next, the cardiac monitor, attach the defibrillator and watch the, that is to monitor the patient, continuous monitoring, then prepare for the CPR. So these are all the things we have to do with the this thing, right? What is the next step? So first you stabilize the ABG. Second step, right? Now we know that the patient is stable now, everything is okay. Now you are going to see what is the next step is to the differentiate whether it is a symptomatic or asymptomatic. Symptomatic or asymptomatic, So that you are going to see, right? How you are going to see that this is a symptomatic or asymptomatic? How you are going to differentiate? If the signs of HASIA, any signs of hypotension, altered mental status, signs of shock, ischemic chest discomfort, anything is one of these signs is present, then it is a symptomatic bradycardia. Then if without that, it is called as asymptomatic bradycardia, right? We are leaving the asymptomatic because you are going to just monitor the patient. You are not going to treat and going to get the expert consultation. You are not going to treat the patient, right? Now you are having the symptomatic patient, right? You are coming into the symptomatic patient. Yes, the patient is having the symptoms. So how to treat the patient? How to treat the symptomatic bradycardia, right? So what are all the modalities which is available? I am giving you a simple mnemonic called PADE. PADE, right? So here the P for pacing. P for pacing. You have to produce a pacemaker, right? There are so many modalities is there. One is transcutaneous pacing that we can do with our conventional defibrillator paddles are there, right? Not these paddles. You have to stick with the pads, right? AED pads or defibrillator pads. Through that you can do a transcutaneous pacing. It means you are passing the current through the skin, right? Current through the skin, and which you are making the electrical impulses. That is known as the transcutaneous pacing. A means atropine. A means atropine. D means dopamine. Dopamine. E means epinephrine. Adrenaline. Right? So these are all the modalities of the bradycardia. So what are the modalities of the bradycardia? Is PAD, pad, right? P for pacing, A for atropine, D for dopamine, E for epinephrine. We will see one by one, right? So you received a patient with bradycardias, you taken a 12 lead ECG, you supported the ABC, then you are analyzing it is a symptomatic bradycardia. Now the symptoms is yes, then you are moving into the third step. Third step, pacing is the first choice, right? So either transcutaneous or transvenous or permanent pacemaker is the mode of treatment, but it needs experts to do that, right? You cannot put just like that transvenous pacing because it needs interjugular vein cannulation or subclavian vein cannulation or femoral vein cannulation. It needs experts, right? So then you need equipments to do that. You need a pulse generator. Pacemaker, right? External pacemaker, you need that. So it needs lot of expertise in that procedure, and it needs equipment, right? If for example you are in the emergency or in the critical care, you are working in the peripheral hospital, right? You need it will take some time, right? So you prepare for the pacemaker. You prepare for the pacemaker means you notify the team, cardiac team or cardiologist team to go ahead with the pacemaker. What we can do is atropine is the drug of choice. The first drug is the atropine. Any bradycardia, right? Any bradycardia, usually that high degree AV blocks, right? High degree AV blocks like second degree type 2 and third degree AV blocks or wide cross complex bradyarrhythmias. The atropine is not a good choice of drug, but even you can try with that. For other bradycardias, the atropine is the primary drug you can give, right? How much atropine we have to give is 0.5 mg atropine IV bolus we can give. The atropine dose is 0.5 mg IV bolus we can give the atropine. It's a IV push, no need of dilution or nothing, just you push that atropine. Atropine will come as an ampule, right, or in the vial. Ampule means it's a 0.6 mg per ml. If you take as a vial, it is a 1 mg per ml, right? So there are more variations of preparations is there. Whatever it may be, that is good. Just you take that 0.5 mg and give in the proper way, right? So that is the IV push of atropine, right? If the atropine is not responding, you given the first dose, the heart rate is not improving, we can repeat the dose, or the heart rate is increasing transiently. After some time again you are feeling the heart rate is coming down. In that scenarios, we can repeat the atropine every 3 to 5 minutes. You can repeat the atropine every 3 to 5 minutes, like 0.5 mg, right? You can repeat maximum of 3 mg. Maximum of 3 mg means at least 6 doses, right? 6 doses you can give, but not more than 3 mg. Because we can give the 3 mg more than 3 mg. For example, in the organophosphorus compound poisoning in the critical care setting, you are using more atropine, more than 3 mg. Like one shot you are giving 5 mgs, 10 mgs, like that. Some physicians they are giving in IV boluses also, right? So if you give more than that, what will happen? Which will block all the receptors. So the 3 mg is sufficient to act to produce a maximum threshold, right? If you give more than that, what will happen is it will produce the adverse effect of atropine, right? We all know that atropine will cross the blood-brain barrier, which will produce the delirium, atropine delirium, like stiffness of the muscle, dryness, fever, so many complications the atropine will produce. So to treat the bradycardia, 3 mg is enough. Don't give more than that, right? So we can produce the, we can give the atropine 0.5 mg every 3 to 5 minutes. You can repeat it. That maximum 3 mg you stop it, right? Don't give more than this, right? Next doses, next modality. See, the atropine is the first drug of choice, right? So once it is responding to atropine, you can do that, right? Or the atropine is not available, or which is not responding to atropine properly, or which is responding transiently, again the heart rate is coming down. In these scenarios, we can start with the dopamine. It is not all together. First atropine, if not responding, then go ahead with the dopamine, right? So what is the dopamine dose is 2 to 20 mics per kg per minute, right? See, the dopamine is a very sensitive drug. The dopamine itself will produce arrhythmias. We have seen in some clinical scenarios where the dopamine is producing ventricular arrhythmias. So careful with the dopamine. So we can start with the dopamine with 2 to 20 mics per kg per minute. That is the bradycardia dosage, right? As an infusion, usually dopamine will come as a 200 mg 5 ml ampule. Just load that and calculate according to the body weight, right? The dopamine always you should calculate according with the body weight. How to calculate that we will see in the later classes. So the dopamine, the dose is 2 to 20 mics per kg per minute as a infusion, right? So once the achieved the rate, heart rate is you achieved the more than 60 or 70, taper the doses, because if you give more dopamine it is harm. So maintain the dopamine as low as possible, which is a response to the bradycardia, right? Next, epinephrine. Epinephrine, the dopamine or epinephrine, not all three together, right? Try with atropine. If it is response to atropine, then it's well and good, stop there, right? Otherwise it is not responding to dopamine or transiently respond to atropine, then go ahead with the dopamine, right? Dopamine or norepinephrine or adrenaline. So what is the dose is 2 to 10 mics per minute. So this is the dose of epinephrine that you can start as an infusion, nothing but adrenaline. So how to calculate the dose, that we are going to see in later classes. Just to know that this epinephrine is the drug of choice, right? Now we know that how to treat the bradycardia, that is the PAD approach, right? What is that? P for pacing. You prepare for the pacing. Even you are an expert, you need some time, because the pacing needs some time to prepare the equipments and to put the cannulization, everything. So you need some time or the expertise. So prepare for the pacing. By the time you treat with the atropine, right? If this bradycardia is responding to atropine, well and good. Or it is not responding, or it is transiently responding, then we can go ahead with the dopamine. The dopamine dose is 2 to 20 mics per kg per minute, right? or you can start with the epinephrine. Dopamine or epinephrine is the choice, right? This is the 2 to 10 mics per minute dose you have to start. Titrate the dose as low as possible to maintain the heart rate, right? Because these rhythms are these drugs which may produce arrhythmias, right? Now we know about what is the symptomatic bradycardia. Now we know about the treatment of choice, atropine, dopamine and epinephrine. Now we see about this pacing, right? These are all the drugs we know that you just load and give as an infusion or bolus, that will work. So what are all the things which is available with the pacemaker after stabilizing the ABC, right? So there are two types of pacemaker which is available in the emergency settings and critical care settings. One is transcutaneous pacing. So the first thing is transcutaneous pacing. Another one is transvenous pacing, right? We all know that. So how to do this transcutaneous pacing? So the transcutaneous pacing is you are passing the signals, the electrical signals through the cutaneous, right? Same how you are giving the defibrillation. If you don't know, just go to my defibrillation video, which is clearly explain where the paddle placement, right? So there are two methods is there. One is conventional pads. You will take the defibrillator and place here and give the shot. Another thing is there is a pad is there. It's like a sticker. You place here and here, like right upper chest and apex of the heart, just 6 centimeters below the axilla. So here you will place the paddles. Now you are giving the impulses, right? The heart rate is very low, so you are producing the impulses through the transcutaneous. That is known as the transcutaneous pacing, right? So always you should start with the lower doses, then you should increase the doses. Once you found the threshold, what is that threshold is? It is you should see a electrical and mechanical capture of the pacing. How you will see that? Electrical capture by seeing the ECG, you will see the electrical heart rate is increased in the ECG. So that is means the electrically it is captured the beats, right? Mechanically, how will you analyze this? You should check the pulse, or through the pulse oximeter you will see the how much pulse rate is there. Your set rate and pulse rate is equal, means it is mechanically capturing, right? Usually in emergency scenarios you will see the carotid pulse, right? But in case if you put the pacemaker, transcutaneous pacing, try to avoid to see the carotid pulse, because the transcutaneous pacing which will produce impulses, that will produce a short contraction over the chest muscles. So that may be transmit. If you see that, you will misperceive or misunderstood that this muscle contraction as a pulse. So to know that, you can select these some other peripheral pulses like femoral pulse or brachial, radial, you can see that. That is the one indication you have to have in the mind. The next thing is, this is little painful. Most of the patients, they will not tolerate. Once the heart rate is increased, their sensorium will get improved, their perfusion is get improved. So they are very well recognize the pain, right? According to your institution, whenever you are going with the transcutaneous pacing, you have to sedate the patient with benzodiazepines or some narcotic drugs. Whatever your institution policy is there, that you should go ahead with that, right? So that is the transcutaneous pacing. So what is this transvenous pacing? So the transvenous pacing is, you are introducing the wire, pacemaker wire, into the veins, and you are reaching the right ventricle. First you will reach the right atrium, then you are pushing into the right ventricle, keeping the pacemaker wire. So for example, this is the heart. So this is the right side, you are reaching and you are placing the wire over the septum. So this is the place where you have to place the transvenous pacemaker wire. At the tip must be in the septum, right? So this is the thing. How you will do that? You can do this transvenous pacing is IJV, right jugular vein, whatever may be the right or left, that is up to the operator or expert's opinion. Whatever way you can go ahead, either use the right internal jugular vein or left internal jugular vein, that you can insert the, first they will put the sheath, right, to keep that vein patterned, then you introduce the pacemaker wire into that. That we are going to see in the pacemaker video, that is separate episode is there, right? So that is the thing. Either you can go ahead with the subclavian vein, right? Those subclavian vein you can cannulate, put a sheath, that is the passage for the wire. Then you introduce the wire. See, with guided of cath lab or fluoroscopy, you can place the wire over the tip of the right in the interventricular septum, right? Most of the time they will prefer the left subclavian because the curvature is like that. Easily you can, technically it is easy. So subclavian you can use. Some experts, they will be interested in femoral vein. So you cannulate either the large vessels, large vein, internal jugular vein, subclavian vein, right or left. Then you are selecting the femoral vein. So through that you are introducing the pacemaker wire and you are placing it into the interventricular septum. You are connecting this wire into the pulse generator. So this is the management of the pacemaker, right? So pacemaker, transcutaneous pacing. You are emergency and critical care expert. Always try to do this transcutaneous pacing, right? Place the paddles and start to try to give a pacing, right? Then transvenous pacing, you need experts. You can go ahead with the veins. It means trans vein, it means you are going through the vein and reaching the heart, right? Transcutaneous means you are going through the skin and reaching the heart. So that is meaning two different this thing is there. So transcutaneous pacing and transvenous pacing. So this is all about the management of the bradycardia. What you will see that any patients coming to you with the bradycardia, what you will see that first job is to stabilize the airway breathing circulation, take the 12-lead ECG and see that it is a symptomatic bradycardia or asymptomatic bradycardia. Asymptomatic bradycardia, you are not going to treat that, you are just observe and monitor, right? Symptomatic bradycardia, yes, then you are going for the PAD treatment, PADU. Prepare for the pacing, give atropine. The atropine dose is 0.5 mg IV bolus. You can repeat the atropine dose every 3 to 5 minutes. Make in mind that maximum dose is 3 mg, right? Or you can start with the dopamine. The dose is 2 to 20 mics per kg per minute. As an infusion, you maintain the rate. Taper the dopamine as low as possible with the response of heart rate is more than 60 or around 70, right? Or epinephrine, you can start the doses 2 to 10 mics per kg per minute. Doses 2 to 10 mics per minute. So that dose you start as an infusion. Keep the epinephrine as low as possible, right? By the time you prepare for the transcutaneous pacing or transvenous pacing, this is by the expert. Or not forget about the reversible causes of this bradycardia, right? Somebody is coming to you with bradycardia, we should find the causes. So what are the causes for this bradycardia? It is easy for us when we study about the cardiac arrest. So we all talk about 5 H's and 5 T's. So what is this 5 H's and 5 T's? Always have in mind some of these conditions which will produce bradycardia more oftenly, right? We will go ahead with 5 H's. Hypothermia. This is very rare scenario in the Asian or Indian scenarios. Usually we will not have the hypothermia because the body temperature should go more than 32 degree or 30 degrees Celsius, then only the bradycardia effect will come, right? So that kind of scenario is very rare in our locality, right? The second thing is the hypoxia. So this is very common thing, right? So the lack of oxygen in the blood, right? So the myocardium is, and all the other organs which is going for a hypoxia, that is producing dysfunctions of the organ. Heart is one of the organs, so which is producing the any other arrhythmia, not only the bradyarrhythmia. It may be a ventricular arrhythmias, it may be a arrest. So whatever this thing, it will go for a hypoxia. Next thing, very important thing, hypo or hyperkalemia. More oftenly you will see, right? Either hypokalemia or hyperkalemia, that will produce the cardiac arrhythmias, especially hyperkalemia in the presence of renal disease, chronic kidney disease patients. they will have the more potassium in their blood, right? So that will produce the bradycardia more oftenly, right? So that is the thing, very important thing. Always you should have in mind that CKD patients, they will come with the hypo or hyperkalemia. Next, hydrogen ion. What is this hydrogen ion means? Directly, which is giving the example of pH. Either alkalosis, most of the time acidosis will produce the bradycardia. So our pH must be, it must be a 7.3 to 7.4. That is the very ideal blood pH. All the enzymes and all the organs which will work very perfectly. Otherwise, which will produce a dysfunction. So the bradycardia is one of these. So that hydrogen ion is the next this thing. Then hypovolemia. We all know that hypovolemia, either it may be due to blood loss or water loss due to vomiting, diarrhea or whatever it is. So these 5 H's may produce a bradycardia. Always you have in the mind that whenever you treat this bradycardia, right, you think about that what is the reversible causes for bradycardia, right? You treat this perfectly, then the heart rhythm will automatically will come to that, right? So that is the 5 H's. Now we know that hypothermia, hypoxia, hypo or hyperkalemia, hydrogen ions and hypovolemia. These reversible causes which will produce the bradycardia. Next we will come to the T's. So what are these 5 T's which will produce the bradycardia? Right. The first T is trauma. Right. This is very rare scenario, like when you hit by the chest traumas, direct hit over the chest, you will produce any kind of arrhythmias, right? Atrial arrhythmias or ventricular arrhythmia or ectopics, whatever it may be. The bradycardia also is one of the rhythm which will produce into this thing, right? Next, tension pneumothorax. So which is obstructive shock. Next is tamponade. Tamponade means it is cardiac tamponade due to the pericardial effusion or some trauma reasons, whatever may be the tamponade is one of the reasons. The next very important thing is thromboembolism. Thromboembolism, it means it may be a coronary or it may be a pulmonary. So these are very important potent rhythms which will produce the bradycardia. So that is the thromboembolism, right? Next is main thing is thrombus. Where the thrombus? It means thrombus in the coronary. It means MI. So that will produce the bradycardia. More oftenly in clinical settings, you will see this most of the time. Right, whenever the patient is coming with the inferior wall MI or posterior wall MI, they will have the bradyarrhythmias. Most of the time, 80 to 85% of the cases are coming like this only, right? What is producing bradycardia? Which is the coronary thrombus, MI, acute ACS, acute coronary syndromes, which is producing the bradycardia more oftenly rather than the other causes. The second vulnerable causes is the pulmonary embolisms. The next is the toxins and other organ like CKD, which producing hyperkalemia. All these kind of things you will see the bradycardia more oftenly in the clinical settings. The last one is toxins. Toxins means what toxins will produce bradycardia? We all know that beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, digoxins or some plant poisons which will produce the bradyarrhythmias. So always have in mind that whenever you initiated the treatment, you as a team leader, you should think about what is the reversible causes for the bradycardia, right? You should see the any MI changes is there, especially in the inferior leads, whatever the thing, all other also may produce the bradyarrhythmia. So see this, any MI changes is there. Try to rule out electrolytes, especially the hypo and hyperkalemia. So all these which will produce the better treatment for you. Please subscribe this information and channel to the your friends and colleagues. Subscribe this channel and share with your friends and colleagues, right? If you want any specific topic, you want any specific topic, or you are having the doubt in this, or you want to comment on this topic, just write in the comment box, so we can have the conversation, and it will be better for us to improve the quality of this class. Thank you for watching.